Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session of the Virtual Roundtable Web Conference. In this session, we're happy to introduce a presentation called Making Your Students Future-Proof, the New Basis for Business. Our speaker is Mike Hogan, and he's a trainer and coach with a passion for helping people develop professionally through successful communication, collaboration, and performance. He has written numerous course books, including the award-winning Business English for Beginners, A1 and A2 with Cornelsen, and Basis for Business. In 2017, he received an award for innovation in business English. Am I right?
Yeah, that was the IHFL Basic Award. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. This session is being live streamed and recorded on YouTube and Facebook. So we are saying hello to everybody who is watching from the stream. So let's begin the session.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Buzika. So welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us today from various places around the world, no doubt. What I'd like to do in this quick session is to think a little bit about how the world of work has been changing. The obvious one is most recently, many of us might have been working in open plan working environments up until a couple of months ago, or many of our students, your learners, if you're teaching business English or general English or anything, or even if you have a job, you might no longer be physically in the same place as your colleagues. You may not even have the flexibility to work from coffee shops or places like that. If like me, you're in a country where everything is a little bit restricted, you've probably been working from home for the last number of weeks. If you're involved in teaching or training, you might have even been delivering lessons online. So these are challenging times, absolutely. But to zoom out from this context and think a little bit about, well, what's the global communication context like? What's the global workplace context like? And not just now, but how has it been changing over the last number of years? And what are the implications of that for those of you who are language teachers and trainers? And what materials are out there that can support you? I will use a few examples. Everything that you see in this session, whether it's a graphic or an image like these, or an example of any kind, they're from the books that I've been involved in writing, Basis for Business B1 and B2. They are also videos and information about these available on the stand in the expo. But moving on and kind of zooming out of that context for a moment, let's think about kind of how evolution in the world in the last 10-15 years is affecting how we communicate with each other and how teachers and trainers do what they do to support their learners. And in terms of global trends, this is a quote. It's already 2 years old actually, but it was said in the context of the rise of technology to be used with teaching, things like chatbots, learning bots, AI, machine learning, and things like that. A teacher should learn all the time. A teacher should share all the time. If we do not change the way we teach 30 years later, or from now, we'll be in trouble. We cannot teach kids to compete with machines who are smarter. We have to teach our kids something unique. So this was in the context of many of the jobs that exist today won't exist in 20 or 30 years, and kids that are born today will possibly be doing jobs that don't even exist today. And this was said by Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba, at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He went on to say, to gain success, a person will need a high EQ. And so this is the movement beyond technical knowledge and ability to do one's job, and to think about the more interpersonal and interrelational skills that are necessary to succeed when working with other people, because business is built on relationships, ultimately. Let's have a look at what else is going on in this context. What other organizations around the world are addressing this topic in this way? We've got Jack Ma. We've got the PISA updates, which is it's a global test or tool done with 15-year-olds all over the world, set up by the OECD to test things like English, mathematics, and science. And in recent years, most recently in 2018, they also added in collaboration skills, complex problem solving skills, and global competency skills was what they called them. The World Economic Forum, now this is also nothing particularly new, but it's interesting that the prediction that they made in 2015 stated that these were the top 10 skills necessary to succeed in the workplace in 2020. And a number of those are critical to us right now, specifically things around cognitive flexibility, judgment and decision making, resilience. We all need higher levels of resilience right now as well, especially in this global context that we're all kind of going through, we're living through. And the CEFR, the Common European Framework of References for Language Learning, have also recently just updated their descriptors to speak about the need for mediation. And what they mean by that is how do we interact with others and mediate or interpret meaning from context, as opposed to just the literal sense of what people are saying to each other. People need to work across linguistic borders, possibly thinking in one language but communicating in another one, or translating something in real time for a colleague who doesn't speak that first language. Pluriculturalism, working across cultures, things like that. And so to think a little bit about, well, some of the ideas that we've put into these books to address these challenges and these changing needs of learners of today and future, people who'll be in the workplace now or in the future. There was the switch, as I mentioned, from thinking about reading, writing, speaking, and listening with the CEF to 4 other modes of learning. Reception, you can see it down here in the bottom left. Reception, you're receiving information. Production, you're producing something, you're communicating with another person. Interaction is you're actually interacting with each other. And then mediation, which is this other area where you get to actually kind of decipher what's the real message, what's going on, how am I building relationships with other people, how am I interacting with other people, how am I influencing others, how am I dealing with conflict, for example. Conflict is not something we can avoid. The key is how do we deal with it when it arises. And so these are all topics and things that we've put into the books, into Basis for Business B2, which I mentioned a moment ago. One of the cool things, I know this is the virtual roundtable conference and people are also into teaching with tech and tech related things. So one of the things I'm particularly happy about that we've done in this book is that there is an app that comes with the book. And you can basically, anyone can download the app. It's called Page Player. And then when you get to the book itself, you can scan a page in the book. So that's an infographic from the page in the book. That's the infographic just there, right? So if let's see if I can do this backwards. If I scan the page with my phone, it should, I might not be far enough back. There we go. It's now just recognized exactly what the file is. It's told me it's my future work skills video and it's asking me, do I want to play it? So rather than the teacher or the trainer, let's say, owning all of the media that we have in the book, it's all in the app, all the listening files, the videos, things like that for the learners. So to give you an idea of what it's like, I'm going to show you the beginning of this video. So all of the infographics are also animated videos. So if you bear with me just a second, I'll see, I need to stop sharing and then I need to start sharing again with a different app, which is this one. I'm just going to show you the first minute of this or so to just give you an idea of the content of the book and the materials, but also a little bit maybe more clarity around what do we mean by these future work skills.
And talk 1. Future work skills. The way we think about success.
Can you enable the sound, Mike?
Sorry, thank you, Heike. I will jump out of that. I'll jump back in and I will enable the sound. Okay, and we will jump back a little bit. Okay.
Watch and talk 1. Future work skills. The way we think about success at work has been changing. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it is now widely accepted that technical skills and knowledge are not enough to succeed. there has been a growing focus on so-called soft skills. Many experts have redefined this concept and refer to them now as essential skills or future work skills. The idea is that soft might be seen as less important or simply as nice to have, whereas future work skills are essential to succeed in current and future workplaces. These include skills for collaborating and problem solving, the ability to work in teams and to influence others, social and emotional intelligence, cross-cultural competency, creativity, adaptability, flexible thinking, and so on. In language learning, the framework of language levels, such as B1, B2, and so on, has updated its descriptors for language and communication.
Okay, so what you will have seen a moment ago is just an example of the online or the animated infographics that we've built into the book. The point there is that the learners all get the tech and the content in their own hands, in their own devices, so that they can look at them and think about them autonomously themselves. And all of the listening activities and things like that are in the book. But moving away from that, I want to focus really more on the content. So as I said a moment ago, these future work skills around collaboration, teamwork, interpreting meaning from context, dealing with relationships, and especially now these days as well, working virtually, are really crucial to succeeding for our learners in the workplace. So just to move on. Yeah, so in the materials that we're working with, you know, we actively discuss this with our learners, you know, how are these things changing for you? And we throw out a couple of devil's advocate type comments or sentences, you know, you can't learn these skills, you're either born with them or not. This is referring to the soft skills or the essential skills that we were talking about. Now, personally, I don't agree with that, but you might meet some resistance from people who do think like that. So then maybe you need to coach them through thinking about how they see the world and how they see their performance with others and where their challenges might be when they're interacting with others. And so there's lots of content there to help support you, you know, to overcome a belief that technical skills are more important than interpersonal relational skills and things like that. So my screen has just changed again, Heike. Am I still screen sharing?
This time it was me, stupid me. Sorry.
No worries. Should I go for it again?
No, because you lost privileges somehow, you know, that's why. Okay. Now, you should be able to. Again, apologies. Me mess up.
No problem at all. So the thing I learned about online teaching a number of times is, don't assume that nothing will go wrong with the tech. And when it does, the most important thing you can do is stay calm, because there will be a very logical reason for whatever is happening. And if you start getting stressed or anxious, it's going to be more difficult for you to focus on fixing that issue, whatever that is. So thinking about, so working future work skills. So this particular video as well, whether you live in, the books are sold in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, whether you live in those countries or not, and whether you have the book or not, that particular video that I showed you is available for everyone on YouTube on the Cornelsen website. It's also in the conference virtual expo area, together with a couple of other videos I don't have time to show you. So even if you don't live in those countries or work with these materials, you've got the content as resource yourself to think about and also to use with your learners. So thinking about, well, how has teamwork changed, and what are the different team working environments that your learners might find themselves in terms of team structures? Are they hierarchical with maybe top-down reporting lines? Are they flatter? Are they centered around maybe agile and autonomous teams that come together for a particular project and maybe are only constrained by time or by budget, and then they separate again? Especially working now in the virtual working world, it's really, really good in that sense, because you can bring skill sets together that don't need to be geographically in the same place. So how is that affecting you? How is it affecting your learners or people you know? Thinking about the challenges of working across cultural norms and cultural borders, because people will have different ways of doing things, different approaches to the same task. People will need to work across time zones and things like that. There may be different reporting lines, whether they're international, local, or global. All of these things can cause confusion. They can cause conflict, difficulties. You've got just the general pressures of working autonomously. Some people can do it very well. Others maybe struggle with it a lot. And maybe even different legal constraints or processes from one site of an organization to another site. And so these are all challenges that our learners and basically people in the world of work these days have to face more and more and more as we become more globally interconnected with each other. And so, you know, we need to think about, well, how are you addressing that with your learners if you're a teacher or a trainer or an educator or a writer in your materials or things like that. So there's a lot of this that goes beyond language acquisition, and we're thinking more about, well, language usage. And when I'm using it, I'm probably rarely using it independently of one of these contexts these days when I'm working, when I'm at my workplace. Yeah, this one's also on YouTube as well. You can find it easily enough, or in the conference virtual expo as well. These days, well-being is absolutely crucial for people, especially if many people are working from home and they've never done it before, and they're disconnected or feeling disconnected from colleagues or things like that, as it's even more important to address with your team, with your colleagues, and also with your learners, you know, well-being, their own personal sense of resilience, where things they might find challenging, goals that they might have. And, you know, yes, you're not psychologists or coaches or things like that, but if you've got a structured framework, at least of discussion topics, that you can talk with your peers, with your teachers, with your learners about these topics, because talking about them is better than not talking about them, and that might help people, you know, better deal with situations that they find themselves in. You know, many people are working very long hours these days, but also just in general, people say they're working more hours, and so where's the time for the work-life balance and things like that. So moving on quickly, I'm aware of the time and I don't want to encroach on the next person's time. So just to review really quickly is yeah, thinking about these top core skills that we need to support people with to succeed in the workplace, whether you are a general English teacher, a business English teacher, or whether you're just, you know, someone who works in an office as an educator or a publisher even. I'm sure there's other people here as well. As we need to think of how can we help develop these skills in people, and how can we help develop awareness of the importance of these skills. So how can we help do that? Well, we can actively discuss with them, what's your context like? What's changing in your working environment? What skills do you need now that you didn't need 5 years ago? What skills do you think you will need in 5 years from now? How relevant is this for you right now? Because not everything anyone puts in a book is going to be relevant for everyone at all, but you can pick and choose the bits that are the most relevant for you and for the people around you and for your learners. You need to think of the blend between language. I suppose this ties back to what I was talking about in terms of language acquisition and language usage. And language these days cannot be used independently of a sensitivity or an awareness of the communication context we're in, the interpersonal focus that we might have with that other person, and cultural elements as well. Because if you're speaking a foreign language, that's because because you don't speak the same language as each other, and maybe both of you don't actually speak the language of communication as your first language. So that brings added complexity as well. And focusing really clearly on outcome-driven activities. So it's not learning for the sake of learning, what's the point, but actually learning because when I learn about this, I can do that better, and I can become better at this thing, or I can overcome that challenge that I'm facing now. And so just some really quick and easy to implement ideas that we have put into this book that I showed you earlier on. Culture spots, so small little cultural kind of nuggets of interactional things to bear in mind when communicating with someone who's from a different culture, down to how do you greet each other, the level of formality that you might use with each other, punctuality in terms of what times things start at or go on until, or approaches to deadlines, how flexible are they or how fixed are they, and things like that. There's loads of those ideas to think about in the materials. You'll see some in the sample materials as well. Focusing on real world tasks and interaction. So here's just an example of a feature called Sounds Natural, which looks at very small little granular things that people can learn about to sound more natural when communicating with others. The example here is about showing interest or building relationships. Using real people. These two people here are actually personal friends of mine. They have, jobs in businesses, in companies. And rather than me writing my top 10 tips for meetings or something, I WhatsApped them one weekend and said, hey, I'm looking for some top tips on meetings. You have lots of meetings, give me some tips. And they did. And I said, can I put you in my book? And they said, cool. And it just makes it more realistic for people who are learning from this content to learn these things from real people as well. And these are things that you can do with your friends, with your colleagues, with your peers, with people from your family. They all have jobs. Use them as a resource for their knowledge, for their experience that you can then share with people who are learning with you or from you. These watch and talk animated infographics, you can use tools like Canva to create your own infographics if you want to. I just sketched these out in the pen and paper, basically. But then, yes, I did have a designer who made my pen and paper sketches look all nice like they do here. But all of those topics that are listed there are in the books as well. They're all in the app as well. A few of them are online for you for free as well. And they deal with those different subjects, like I mentioned, diversity in the workplace, dealing with resilience, things like that. Something I haven't had a chance to show you yet, but they are also in the virtual expo area, is interviews with real business people talking about things like delegating or influencing others. How do you build strategic partnerships with people, both in your organization and outside of your organization? Storytelling and data visualization techniques, things like that. So these are all things that you can do by tapping into your networks as well, even if you don't work with these books. So that was kind of pretty much what I wanted to show you. That's just a question for you to think about, is how are these themes being addressed in your training room? How are you addressing them yourselves? And this is just a quick review again of these are the covers of the books that you're looking for if you do go into the virtual expo area and you're looking for some more information. The app is called The Page Player by Cornelsen. It's on the Google Play Store and on the Apple App Store. Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation with you. It's such a short little session here, and it's been kind of one way to a degree as well. Well, not to a degree, other than when Heike was helping me. So I'd love to get in touch with you and hear about your teaching and learning context. Yeah, and maybe if you work with some of the materials, how it works out for you. If you've got other ideas, I'd love to hear them, because I'm all about sharing. So you can catch up with me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn kind of URL is Mike Hogan, trainer and coach. I'll stop the sharing now to get us back to a bigger screen and other people. And say that I've kind of come to the end. I can now see the chat field, which I couldn't see a moment ago. And Sharon has said, one criticism of some course books is that they often neglect to include work on BELF, business English as a lingua franca, communication strategies, such as clarifying ideas in meetings. How far have you approached such things explicitly? So explicitly, Sharon, we've made a point of using very many speakers of other languages in the audio recordings and in the scenarios that are in the books. So we might have a German person communicating with an Italian person in English, and we've laid a core focus on successful and intelligible communication, first and foremost, over accuracy. And I'm not saying accuracy is not important, it is important, but at the end of the day, if you're communicating with someone and all your grammar is right, but you offend them and you make an interpersonal faux pas, or just communication breaks down in some way, versus you are sensitive to the interpersonal relationship elements of communication when you're trying to influence someone, but you might have a mistake or two in your grammar, which is going to be the most important thing. And so, yes, explicitly, we do actually address that as discussion points, as debate topics, but also in the recordings, in the scenarios in the book, we purposely add in elements of people backtracking their sentences and maybe not having things absolutely perfect, because we want to focus on the outcome of the communication and not the precision of what's happening in there, if you know what I mean.
We have a question here. A person found the application, and she says it's in German. She asks where to look for the English version.
So I'm not 100% sure if there is an English version. The application becomes particularly useful for you if you have the book and you're using it with your learners, and the books have been designed with are sold in the German-speaking world, so Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, and so that's kind of where the app really has its value. In that sense, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if there is an English-speaking version of the app, but we have pulled some examples of the content on the app out of it and put them on YouTube for free for the world to use as your own resources, whether you're using the book or not. They're on the Cornelsen website or YouTube channel, and they're also at the stand in the virtual expo area as well. There's four resources, 2 videos and 2 interactive animations.
Okay, will you be available for people to answer the questions at the expo stand?
I'll connect with my colleague who is from Cornelsen, who will be at the stand. My colleague Doreen should be at the stand to be able to answer questions about the books and the materials. I'll drop in and out, so if I'm not specifically there, please feel free to direct message me or connect with me on Twitter at IrishMikeH, or connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, it would be very useful if you could type in the message box, in the chat box, how people can contact you. So everybody can see that, and
I don't have it open right now, but I'm pretty certain my LinkedIn URL is Mike Hogan, trainer and coach. But I'm based in York in the UK, so you can kind of find me fairly easily that way on LinkedIn. Photo kind of looks like I look now, except I don't have my lockdown beard. I'm working on that at the moment because I'm trying to look like the guy in lockdown from the image that I showed you earlier on.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for this was wonderful.